Ozzy Osbourne with a Black Sabbath there, and they're H.P. Lovecraft inspired Behind the Wall of Sleep. And speaking of H.P. Lovecraft, just last week I recorded an interview with the H.P. Lovecraft and Brian Lumley inspired author K.M. Taylor. So here's the interview coming right up.
Northern Ireland's Big Hits Radio.uk.
So I'm very pleased to be joined here today with K.M. Taylor, a horror author from Florida, America. So hello, K.M., and thank you very much for joining us on the show today on Big Hits Radio.uk. How's things with you, and how's Florida?
Oh, it's great. Temperatures are kind of mild right now, which is my favorite. And, personally, we've got some issues. We have a little sick puppy and things like that we're dealing with. But overall, things are good. So,
well, I hope the puppy is a lot better soon. We could do with some of your weather here. Although it's mild, over here it's freezing, but it always is, even during the summer.
Oh, wow.
Even during our heat waves. So how did you begin writing, and could you tell us a bit about yourself and how you started off writing?
Okay, well, for me, I started writing in high school, probably before that, actually. And, of course, when you're a kid, most of it's fan fiction. And I still do a little bit of that here and there. But it was just, when words start coming to you, I started playing around with poetry, was one of my first things that I started doing. And then I would just get these story ideas, and I just would jot them down. And I remember being in English class, and I went to a specific class, which was English writing. I chose that one, which was a cool thing for the high school. That was kind of a new thing. And I wrote a story, a ghost story, and my lead character was Simon Le Bon. And, through this whole thing,
as you do.
As you do.
Yes.
And the teacher very much liked it. She said that I had the potential at the time, but I was so shy about my writing. I would write with my best friend, who is another author, R.L. Davis Hayes, and she's fantastic. She has a book series out. She's ahead of me, but I kept my stuff to me, close to the vest, because I was super shy about it for such a long time.
Yes.
So now I'm finally 56 years old and releasing my first novel, and it's been received very well so far. So it's encouraging.
Congratulations. Yes. And it's never too late to start, the way I see it, in any sort of aspect in life. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So you list your writing influences as Brian Lumley, who sadly passed away just last month, H.P. Lovecraft, Anne Rice, and Edgar Rice Burroughs. Could you tell us more about this, please, and your influences, essentially?
Right. Well, in the order of discovery for me, I think my writing took a bit of I don't know what you call it, ascension, when I found Anne Rice. And at the time, certain writers, and not all, will make my brain write. It just feeds the words. And she was the first that did that for me, did that for me. Now, I did some Lovecraft. I think he came after her. It was, I can't remember how long ago, but we have a big bookstore, which has a lot to do with how I discovered all of these. It's called Chamberlain Book Mine, and it is a dream. It actually ended up in my Edgar Rice Burroughs. I wrote an Edgar Rice Burroughs story, and it starts in a version of that bookstore. Anyway, but when the words started coming, and then I would have these, first it was fanfic ideas because it's based on characters that you fall in love with, but then I started to get ideas that became my own, and I started writing a story that ironically was called Twilight.
Right.
Yeah, but it was a very different story from Twilight. But it was influenced a lot by the kinds of vampires that Anne wrote about, but it had werewolves and everything in it. So of course, when I found Lumley later, he covered all the bases and blew my mind. So it went from beautiful vampires to these hideous, wonderful, beautiful in a whole new way vampires, which just blew my mind. Anyway, so it was her first. And then H.P. Lovecraft, I believe, after that, and then Lumley, and then Burroughs, and that I discovered them.
Yes.
But the greatest influence is definitely Brian Lumley. He I don't know what it is about how, and especially Necroscope, Titus Crow, a few of the others that get me, but Necroscope is like my writing god. Yeah. Anytime I'm finishing a book, final edits, I read Necroscope because it just brings it. I love how he writes.
What do you think it is about Brian's writing, and especially with the Necroscope series, that is so special to so many people?
His flow. I've heard it described by other people. There's a rhythm. And for me, I guess maybe starting in poetry had something to do with it, but reading an author, not all authors that I can read have to have a rhythm, but when they do, they become elevated. And he has a rhythm like no other. It's just perfect. It's almost poetic. And he knows how to write characters that really make you, everybody up, the good guys, the bad guys. And sometimes they're right in between that. And he does it so well. And it got into my soul. I mean, I will always say that Lumley is my favorite author of all. He just hits it.
And so, as we were discussing, you published your first novel, Codex Sohrakia, The Gifted Dark, last Halloween, very aptly. And what's it about, and where can listeners purchase it?
Okay. They can purchase it on Amazon.com. They can also go to my socials under KM Taylor Author. I'm all over the place. You can just search for me and I'll be there probably. But okay, what it's about. It is a little difficult to describe because I don't want to give it away.
Yes.
It doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. And that's almost every reviewer. I haven't got a whole lot of reviewers yet, but it's getting there, has said the same thing, that it's unpredictable. It's been called a dark fantasy, celestial fantasy. There is an element of horror because of the outer darkness and the Sohrakia side, which is the realm. Let's just say that they're not angels because it doesn't happen in our reality. It's a whole new philosophy. But an angel messes with darkness, dark matter, and for that becomes cast out for his transgression, and he's trying to get himself back into the realm of light, and he does some things to try and get his redemption, thinking he's doing right. There's a whole other layer of a duality to this that I don't want to give it away, so I won't go into too much description over that.
Yes.
But it's been described as a bit, one of my fans now, who seems to be like the greatest fan in the world, he says it reminds him of Clive Barker's Magica in the sense of creatures and beings and realms and whatever. I have never read that. I've never read Clive Barker.
Well, that is very sort of Barker-esque, Barkerian even, with the whole, I know with a lot of his work, he plays around with, these, obviously there's sort of like dark sort of fantasy horror there, but also the whole sort of God and angels and demons and that sort of thing. So yes.
Yes. And yet it's different than that, I think, according to him. I have a Magica on my to-read list because I know I must know why it's being compared. And I've tried to read some Clive Barker in the past. It didn't really strike me, but that one, a lot of people tell me, is a very different animal from some of his other works. And I'm pretty excited about checking that out. So I don't want to say too much about the story. It seems to resonate with people. My own sister, she said it's a bit like a book for outcasts or the Misfits. And having been in the goth scene back in the 90s, and a little bit now, actually, revisiting the goth scene, we know how that feels to kind of be a little bit left center of the world.
And it's like an outsider. Yeah, I understand that. And I think all us sort of horror and weird fiction fans can feel that to a certain degree, definitely.
Yes, we got the dark side, but it's a creative and productive dark side.
Absolutely. We embrace the dark side. So I believe your second novel is on the way. Can you tell us anything about it?
Very different from Codex Sohrakia. The Devil's Conquest, it is a soft, erotic pirate romance, supernatural adventure.
Yes.
So it starts out very romance, very a pirate and his winch kind of situation. And then a circumstance brings in a little touch of supernatural that carries the story into more of an adventure. It's a lot of fun because I love pirates and pirate lore, the whole accent, which I write the accent, which I'm a stickler about that. And I love it. I love it. It's so different. And yet there is a tiny thread that will tie it to Codex Sohrakia. And my plan is that every book I write will have some tiny, to one degree or another,
a connection. They're all connected to the same universe. Yes.
Yes. They're not vital to each other unless it's part of the Codex series, there will be more books on that. But it is definitely, yeah.
When will that be out?
I was shooting for Valentine's Day because it seemed kind of appropriate, but it's taking a little longer. My editor's still working on it, and it's out to a beta reader or an ARC reader, whatever. So when they're done and I'm final edits, I think sometime in March is what I'm shooting for. I'm hoping everything goes good for that.
And it will be available on Amazon as well, yes?
Absolutely.
And what else do you have in the pipeline? And where can listeners find out more about you? I know you were saying you're all over the social medias. Do you have a website or anything like that?
kmtaylorauthor.com. Pretty easy. So KM is for my first and middle name, Kaneda Marlene Taylor.
Yes.
And it's just .com straight, no spaces or anything like that. There are some wonderful, and it's not tooting my horn, it's actually tooting Joshua Saxon's horn. I'm sure you've heard of Joshua.
Yes, I have. Yes.
He does audiobooks, and he's going to be doing Codex Sohrakia, which we're starting late March on that recording. Yes. And he did a portion of the prologue for the book, and I created a video for that, and that is on my YouTube channel under the same name. You can see it on my website, and it is wonderful. His voice, and to have the voice of Necroscope doing Codex Sohrakia. Anyway, by that. And he approached me, which made me feel very good. He read the book, liked it, and said, if you ever consider doing an audiobook, please let me know. And I said, yes. So there we are. That I'm very happy about.
Yeah. And do you have any other work in the pipeline aside from the second novel? I've
been hoarding a lot of things for a long time. It was the 80s when I started writing, and I'm now it's where it is. So I have a lot of things, stories that are finished, close to finished, or that are so old that I would like to polish up, rewrite, things like that to bring it up to now. But yeah, they're all pretty much horror, or I've got a vampire story, and I don't have a title for it yet, but it is going to be connected to Codex Sohrakia more so than the pirate story. I have a Unholy Obsession, which is a sort of a psychological horror vampire priest thing that has I have a sci-fi one that I'd like to do, which is very psychological. I think my stuff kind of goes very psychological. But it is inspired by, it's not a fan fiction because but it's off of a song, and it's IAMX North Star. The lyrics to that hit, I want to do a cyborg that's becoming self-aware. And I want to play with the psychology of suddenly being conscious of one's
feeling.
Self.
Yeah.
And so I want to play with that. So that's,
Daft Punk also do a song called Touch, which is addresses similar themes. Daft Punk, I don't know if you're aware of them.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. I don't know if I've heard that song, though, that particular
Touch,
song.
It's quite an epic song. It's about 8 or 9 minutes long, but they address similar themes about a sort of android cyborg type creature, gaining consciousness. It's very good.
I'm going to listen to that one. And Gary Numan is also an influence on that. And of course, the IAMX song was the thing that got it in my head. But all of these, Gary Numan is going to be on every soundtrack, I think, for every book that I want. Yeah. Because he's got several, as I've mentioned, several songs I mentioned to you before we did the interview that influenced Codex Sohrakia. So Gary's amazing.
Well, KM Taylor, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. It's been a pleasure, and all the very best with your new novel, but also the upcoming second novel. I believe you have a song request by the aforementioned Gary Numan. Would you like to introduce it yourself?
Where I Can Never Be. That is just... there's a character in Codex Sohrakia that fits to a T. So
here it is. It's Gary Numan with Where I Can Never Be, as requested by KM Taylor. And thanks again for speaking to us today.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. Thank you. I'm honored.
We are BigHitsRadio.UK.
So thanks again to KM Taylor for that interview. And KM was discussing how her own work has been inspired by the works of Brian Lumley. Well, I now have a request from Brian Lumley fan Rob McKeown in Australia, with a shout out also from Rob to Joshua Saxon, who was also referenced in that interview, and who is the current and widely regarded as best audiobook narrator for Brian Lumley books, with Rob also passing on his condolences to Barbara Ann Lumley from Brian's fans after his recent passing. And the song Rob has requested is actually the same one that I played last week by the Downliners Sect, featuring the vocal talents of Brian Lumley, titled Bookworm. So thank you for this, Rob, and thanks for tuning in also. And here's the song as requested by your good self.
Fear me, said the necroscope, but this is your rebirth. I am not here to harm you. but to call you from the earth.
Waking in the darkness, pain in my head. Have I been sleeping, or am I long dead? Try to keep the fear down, trying to survive. Did I go to bed? Was I buried alive? Sins of the Father, way down on the Son. Is it something he said? Is it something that I've done? Will I try to kill the only one that I love? Death in the darkness, terror from above. Look up to the deep sky, tell me what you see. Is it imagination, or are they coming through for me? When the night is lonely and you've got no place to go, read Lovecraft, Lumley, Edgar Allan Poe.
Vampire lady's face, her entire face, was a mask of blood, and her mouth a cave of knives. When she smiled at her weak, her kiss was poison, an embrace meant undeath, my death, a new me, better, stronger, but not me. Bookworm is a timid creature at best. But when the dream becomes reality and words of fear leap from the page, what then? In Starside dwells a thing that walks on the wind, and his These ladies' thoughts are acid to burn your mind. A dog lord plays tunes on the sounding bones of men and monsters, and sings for his supper to his mistress Moon. But his supper only screams. No, put aside that book, my friend, lest you see what I have seen. That way lies madness.
Downliners Sect there, featuring Brian Lumley, as requested by Rob McKeown.